Hey there, Doodlebugs. Today we're going to be making a cat bed. Let's go. So, what I'm going to be doing is a cat bed. I'm borrowing Mom's sewing machine, and I have some leftover fleece. I have some leftover fleece from a project that I made for my girlfriend. I made a weighted blanket. Aren't these dragons so cute? And then this one is just a plain blue. And then this is actually a cat toy that I deconstructed. It was a crinkle bag, but my cats hated it. And I thought it would be such a waste to just get rid of it because they loved the material, but they hated how noisy it was. So I took the crinkle fabric out and I was going to repurpose it for a cat bed. So I was thinking that I would make a cuddler style bed. I'll put in a picture here of my sister's dog bed that my cat takes over all the time. That's kind of what I'm basing it off of. So I'm kind of winging it. I've never done anything like this before. I have no plans, but we're gonna see how it goes. So I'm sitting and I'm looking at my fabrics and I'm thinking that I'm not gonna use the blue. I think it's just going to be the leftover cat toy and the dragon material, and that's because there is this tealy kind of aqua dragon that kind of matches the cat toy, and I think it would end up coordinating better. Then, because of the size of this, I think I'm gonna end up taking my seam ripper and removing this kind of end piece that makes it look more like a pillowcase. So I just have the blank teal color, and I'm gonna end up stuffing this bag and then sewing it shut. All right, so I got the little collar off. I cleaned up all the threads. It's actually made of 2 separate layers, but I'm going to keep the lining. I think the next step that I'm going to do as I create this project on the fly is I took the remnant that I had left of this dragon fabric from end to end, and I kind of eyeballed a measurement by lining it up with each of the edges to see about making the sides, because on a cuddler bed it has the sides. The cats like to nuzzle up. And I'm thinking that if I fold it in half long ways, cut along there so I end up with half the size, when I fold that in half, it would be a nice height if I sewed it on for the bed. So I'm gonna see if I can't figure that out, and I'll get back to you. Surprise, I got a haircut. So right now, as you can see, I am folding the fabric in half and doing my best to line up the edges. It doesn't have to be perfect though, it's just a scrap project. It's just a cat bed. They're gonna lay on it, they're not gonna care if the lines are perfect. After all, they're just cats. But keeping the lines as straight as possible is definitely going to make the sewing a little bit easier. Oh well, it's exactly 12. So we'll cut it at 6.5 for a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm cutting the open end and leaving the folded side. Always make sure to close your rotary wheel when you're not cutting with it. You don't want to accidentally cut your hand when you go to grab for it. Just keep checking your journal, of course. Looks like the last cut. There we go. All right, so I was a little bit lazy, and this is exactly why you don't do this. So I turned it right side out again, and the center liner sewed up the way it was supposed to, but this second layer ended up falling off pretty soon on. So I could rip the stitch and sew it again, or I could do it by hand. And I think I'm going to end up ripping the stitch and sewing it again, just because it'll probably be faster. So there we go. There is the seam fixed and my little hole for stuffing. So next what I'm going to do is sew the sides onto the bottom. I'm just basically going to do like a top stitch type application. I'm thinking just lining up the edges and just having the edges stick out. I don't think it'll really look too bad. In fact, I think it could be kind of cute. What do you think? If you were gonna do this part, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. So my bobbin ran out in the middle of me sewing, which really stinks, but I'm going to refill it and then I'll be right back. Okay, so here's what I have going right now. It's actually starting to look more like a bed, if you can see, and it's kind of floppy, so it's hard to show. When I initially measured it, I thought I was gonna end up having a little bit of a gap where the edges wouldn't be long enough to completely enclose it, but as you can see, while I was sewing, I found out that it's actually going to have, I hope that this is easy to see, but it's actually going to have a bit of overlap where there's too much of the edge. So I think I'm gonna end up finishing that part by hand. I'll just end up trimming the excess, rolling it in, and just doing like a running stitch through that by hand. Should be fine, should hold up just okay. But basically, here's what I have for the edges, and I actually think it turned out pretty cute. This little top stitch, and there's the bottom. So what I think I'm going to do now is stuff the bottom and then close this seam so I can go ahead and finish attaching the side. And then I'll stuff the edges, and I wanted to sew the corners. Alrighty, so here is the bed, all fluffed and filled. I think I might have overfilled the bottom, but it's already sealed, so I will leave it that way. As you can see, I didn't end up sewing the corners. I think it has enough structure on its own. The only thing I have left to do now is to close up this corner, and what I think I'm gonna do, instead of cutting it like I thought before, I might just jam that sucker in there, fold it over, and sew it, because in essence it'll get the same effect. And I think it'll just help fill up this corner a little bit, and then I'll be done and I'll show it to the cats and we'll see what they think. Alrighty, and here's the finished product. So there's the bottom, which I actually think turned out really nice. No, I was concerned about that. There's the top. You can see that it does have a little bit of depth. Probably not as much as I was going for, but that's because I overstuffed the middle, but I think the cats will end up liking it once they start sleeping on it and it starts getting squished and flat and loved. Louise, look what I got for you, baby. Look, baby. I made you a present. What do you think? Come check it out. Well, with kids, I think it's safe to say that you win some and you lose some, but thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.